Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Packard Network and this edition of Minutes with Brett Live. And I was very fortunate earlier in my career to learn never to chase success. And rather, this person taught me was that success is something that you attract by building your skills, and then it comes to you like a magnet. And it's an amazing concept that works. And you're going to love the special guest who's actually built his career off of this concept. And I had the opportunity to meet him many years ago in Dubai and work with him closely in Asia. And Mr. Amresh Acharya is with us live from Mumbai, India, which is the evening time. And Amresh's career spans nearly 3 decades in financial services in Asia, the Middle East, and India itself. And he truly fits the definition of a terrific global citizen. And he has an MBA. He went to the Indian Institute of Management and Lucknow MBA in Management. And he's currently the managing director and CEO at Loyalty Rewards Management Private in Mumbai. And so, Amresh, welcome to Minutes with Brett Live. It's terrific to have you here on the Packard Network.
Hi, Brett. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good morning. Time zones are different. And Brett, thanks for your kind words. Many thanks for your kind words.
That's great. Well earned and deserved, Amresh. And Amresh, why don't we just kick off the program a little bit by your talking for a few minutes about the journey that you've had as an adult. You can go back further if you'd like, or you can start there and maybe just kind of walk us through your life journey and your career journey. Sure. and anything personal is welcome as well. And then we'll just have a chit chat about things. And I'm sure the audience will be able to acquire a concept or two in the next half hour.
Sure. Brett, so thanks for the question, Brett. So you spoke about my management degree. I actually started my college with a degree in electronics and communication engineering. And I finished that engineering degree. And while I was doing that degree, I realized that I was more interested in the managerial side of things rather than the hardcore engineering side of things. And so I decided to do an MBA and switch over to a career in management as opposed to a career in hardcore technology. And so that was a bit of a conscious call. And then post management degrees in those days, in the context of that time, the best thing to do after a management degree in India was to join an MNC because of culture and money and stuff. And so I joined an MNC bank, ANZ, as a management trainee. And then I stayed a banker for almost 25 years. I was very fortunate, Brett, to have worked across both multinational and local banks across several geographies. I worked in India for a long time before I decided to move to Singapore. It was a very conscious call because I wanted to have an international experience, both in my personal and my professional life, and give my family also that cross-cultural context.
Was that sorry to interrupt, Amresh. Was that a difficult decision? Because being in India and saying you want to go international, and it might be an easy thing to say in hindsight because you've been on airplanes all over the world, and I know that you have a family that's been educated in North America, and you've been kind of all over the place. But at that point in time, I mean, that must have been a big decision for you and your family to do. How did you actually go about making that decision?
Actually, it was very difficult, Brett, because my wife is also a professional, and in fact, she was the CEO of a media company here in India. When we took that decision, but we had consciously decided that we will take the decision. So I actually moved to Singapore first, and then we had made that call that because I was moving to a private bank in Singapore, which was very different from how private banking and wealth happens here in India. So we had decided that let me go there first, let me settle down, let me like what I do, and only then we will uproot everybody out. And it's very interesting you asked the difficulty part of it. My wife actually got a job, in Singapore, after almost a year, and she moved to Singapore on the 23rd of September 2008.
Mhm.
28th of September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapsed. Okay. And the
Oh,
job that she had got withdrawn.
what
So here
timing?
she had,
Yeah, what
yeah,
timing?
what timing?
Yeah.
She had landed up, for with a job, and she was going to be CEO of a large multinational media agency again in Singapore. But then the good thing is, those days, those who know history, Singapore recovered very fast from the crisis, and I think within
Mm.
7 8 months she got the job back. So suddenly we became a working couple in Singapore as well. So I mean, it was kind of luck, a bit of luck, bit of timing. But it was a conscious call, Brett, and I think it's one of the best decisions we took. It gave my
Mhm.
family and me a very cross-cultural context, both in our work life and in our personal lives. It gave us a new view of our son's education as opposed to the kind of education he was getting in India. He went to an international school, and much of the reason of why today he works in North America and not in India is because he also got a very different perspective to life, and we as parents got a very open and different perspective to life. Uh,
Mhm.
so coming back to that, so that's a little bit of 25 years of banking that I did, and then somewhere in 2016, once my son went to the US and started studying over there, it became very lonely for me. And my wife had come back to India because I mean she had moved back as a part of her career, had gone transferred back over here. So
Mhm.
I decided to move back because it was getting, the family life was getting a little stretched. Son in the US, wife, CEO of a company here. I am heading a private bank there in Singapore, and so I moved back here. And about 3 years back, my life changed, Brett, and I got in this opportunity to become the CEO of this smart tech company. It's a marketing technology company. We are the market leaders in what we do over here in India. So we
Mhm.
basically run, loyalty engines for banks and retails and hotels and all that in India. And I got an opportunity to be the MD and CEO here. And I thought it was a very, very interesting move from two perspectives. First is, of course, I think the world is moving to technology, moving outside of what traditionally, I was doing for so many years. That's one. And second is, I had always wanted to do something more entrepreneurial as opposed to working for a large firm in a very classical structures. And here was an opportunity to, drive a technology company as the CEO, reporting to a board, and pretty much in an entrepreneurial kind of a setup, as close to an entrepreneur as it could be on a very scalable basis. So
Mhm.
that's a decision I took, and so here I am.
Oh,
That's
that's
back in
terrific.
Mumbai doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then COVID hit,
Oh yeah,
right?
of course.
Yeah. So how did that? I mean, I think the entire world knows, obviously, about COVID, but certainly knows the earlier this year, just the devastation in your country. What happened, and I think that, how did that impact your business, if at all?
So Brett, let me go back a little to the first phase, actually, which was April of last year, which the first wave hit the
Hmm.
world. I mean, including India. I think that was a very scary time, Brett, because my company is into loyalty points and loyalty engines, right? And loyalty points get accrued and consumed by consumers when they spend. And if everything is locked down around you, the restaurants are shut, flights are shut, hotels are shut, shops are shut, malls are shut, where are you spending? Okay.
Yeah.
So my company's revenues obviously took a huge plunge. Uh, and it was scary, not because it took a huge plunge, it was scary because I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because at that point in time, if you remember, April last year, everything was so uncertain. We didn't know what was the, when is it going to end, and when will the lockdown end, and how many lives will
Hmm.
be lost. So there were personal fears, there were, fears at work. I had 500 people working for me, and how do I sustain their jobs? But we did a lot of good things then, Brett. We actually cut down salaries, and the people came up and said, guys, let's just, to kind of keep ourselves in good financial condition. And you'll be surprised, Brett, that we actually ended up last year better than we had earlier, you know, than the years before. Because what we did is we used that lockdown to, and the lockdown opened, of course, and we used that to become far more productive. I mean, for those of you who have been to Mumbai, it's a city with very heavy traffic. People spend hours on the road commuting. We started working from home as a company, And to my delight, people loved it. Their productivity went up dramatically because they just didn't have to spend time in trains and buses and and cabs and cars anymore. So the company actually became more productive in the year that followed, post that initial lockdown scare that happened to us both in the professional and personal front. The second wave happened, Brett, and that was scary from a personal perspective because it was a more virulent variant, as all of us know, and it was hitting family and friends, and all of us knew people who were getting hit with it, and we also had tragedies in people's families. I had a few employees who lost people, uh, but I was very fortunate that our company did not lose a single employee to COVID. We had illnesses, but we didn't have people directly have mortality over there. But we definitely had a huge personal situations around. But I think we rallied around. We supported
Mhm.
employees. We were allowed them to, there were a lot of employees who went back to their cities and worked from there because their old parents are there.
Yeah, I was Amrish. I was listening or having conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine on the West Coast here in North America, and she and I were talking about the work from home situation, and if that Amrish, can you hear me? I think you're frozen up.
I,
Can you
uh,
hear me? Okay.
is it okay now? Is it okay
Yeah,
now? Yeah.
it's
Okay.
fine now. Yeah,
Yeah.
no
I think my
problem.
Wi-Fi was playing up.
That's okay.
So
So I
I
was,
was just saying that.
yep.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Amish, I was just going to ask you, just to kind of move this along a bit. I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody here in North America that works in Silicon Valley. And she and I were talking about the whole work from home thing. And it's been, a big debate, right, around the world on employees not wanting to come back and some wanting to come back and CEOs wanting people back a little bit. And, just a lot of differing views on things. But our conversation was focused on a very specific area on the need for people, okay, forget the commute and everything, but the need for people to actually be face to face with each other, not digitally necessarily like we are now, but actually face to face where you can see true body language, right? You can see people completely express themselves, not necessarily on a camera, but in person. And as we all know, there's nothing like that. Do you have a view on the work from home concept in the post-COVID era, and through the lens of somebody, just basic interpersonal needs?
So, Brett, we've actually done some very interesting work in our company. We actually did a survey of people, okay, saying, so how would you want to come back to work? Okay, because we've obviously realized you can work from home. And you'll be very interested that very many of the people actually said they want to come back to work in some form or the other. And of course, in an IT company, what happens is that the average age of the employee is very young. I mean, my company average age is 26 years old. Many of them are single. For them, the office is also an outlet for social, interaction. They're all staying. Many of them are staying alone in Mumbai because their parents are somewhere else. So I think what we have come back to as a conclusion is, at least as of now, when we come back to work, we will not come back to work in a 100% work from office way. We'll probably have a hybrid where we will allow, say, staggering of things. So two teams will come on, say, Monday, two teams will come on, and we'll kind of combine teams who work with each other to kind of come and interact with each other, and we'll drop a roster. So it is going to be a hybrid for us. And we actually came out as a solution based on our interaction with people, leaders, team leaders, and they thought this was the best way to do. I mean, as of now, these things will evolve, thinking evolves. But I think it's interesting that as a solution, we will probably do a bit of both. And so that there is the productivity that we've gained from the work from home, and there is also the interactions that you can have with each other and gain from that as well. But you can't wish away that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Do you think people work longer in the remote work situation than they did pre-COVID?
Yes, they do. We've done a survey of that as well. We've actually not a survey. We actually did a, because people are logged in into the system. We actually did a system audit to see, uh, uh, and that's the balance we'll have to somehow figure out how to do that. Not getting people to work on weekends, because what's happened is the whole concept of weekends, morning, evenings have got blurred.
Right.
I
So
myself personally have
how
felt.
are you,
Sorry.
how is you and your firm, I know it's still evolving, but from what it sounds like, but how are you kind of addressing that right now? Because that's something that could really cause, I mean, who would have ever thought we'd be sitting here in the year 2021 talking about burnout with a situation of people working from home?
I think one of the things we'll have to do is to have a few disciplines around the place, which is to make people log off at a certain point of time and say like 7 in the evening or 6 or whatever the time is. I want you guys out of the computer unless there's an emergency and something critical is happening. Similarly, weekends, no client calls, no meetings, no being called into Zoom calls on the weekends, and a very need to have kind of a thing over there. We'll have to put some structures in place. It's evolving, but we will have to. It's very sure that we will have to. Otherwise, you will have people wondering, where's my week, where's my weekend, and I have no work-life balance left just because I'm working from home. That's not fair. It's
Yeah,
not good as well.
it's quite interesting because pre-COVID there was always the general, what I'll call the general managerial belief that if people work remotely, work from home, are they really working or not? And I think we've gone way past that, where now you and
Correct.
I are talking about a situation where maybe they're working too much from home.
Correct.
Very interesting
Correct.
concept, and I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
more to come on that, and that you'll I may have you back on the program to share things down the road on how that turns
Sure.
out.
Sure. Brett.
Amresh, let's talk for just a moment. At the opening, I talked a bit about how chasing success, by not doing that, it helped me accelerate my career so quickly and with high quality. And rather, because I was advised early on, develop your skills, Brett. If you want to learn about wealth, study wealth, right? If you want to learn about retail banking, study retail banking, and develop those skills, and the marketplace will reward you for that. And therefore, success is something that's attracted like a magnet. And one of the first things that I noticed about your career, and you just look at your track record, which is very impressive, is that you've become a magnet to attract success by developing yourself. And look, you're doing a completely different type of business now than you've done your entire career over 30 years. And there, in my opinion, there's only one way you can do that, which is to develop some expertise in an area that you don't have, and then the marketplace will find you. My question, Amresh, I'd like to talk for a few minutes about is, how do you allocate and invest time in yourself so that you're constantly developing these new skills? What's your approach to that? Because so many people are so busy with their job and their career and their family and all the things that are important in life, but they don't take the time to do what you've done. And I think the audience could really benefit a great deal by hearing how you've been able to do this.
So, Brett, I think the first thing, Brett, is to admit to yourself that I don't know. I think I find that most people who fail are those who did not do that admission to themselves first. The moment you are brave enough, so today I am the CEO of a company, if I am honest enough to admit that I don't know much about data sciences, I didn't know much about data sciences when I joined this company, I have a data sciences AI ML unit in my company, I think the first battle is won there itself. So then you become honest enough to, in your reviews, in your meetings, to ask the questions, saying, listen, I didn't understand this. What are you trying to say? And that curiosity and that honesty about not feeling small, about telling a guy who's, for example, your subordinate, okay, in this case, listen, I didn't understand what you're saying. Can you explain it to me? And may not be in the meeting because you don't want to deviate the meeting into that kind of detail, but you catch him later saying, listen, can you spend time with me and explain to me what was this actually? And you will find that 9 times out of 10, it'll work for you. And that's not just true for technology. In this case, because I am now head of a technology company, there's been tremendous amount of learning. I realized the moment I became a CEO, HR, for example, all my life having worked in banks, HR was a dotted line to you. It was reporting to somebody and he was like a support function supporting you. Suddenly HR reports to me. Now, I'm not an HR expert. I don't understand labor laws. I don't understand, laws around, EPFs and, provident funds and, what they call CPF in Singapore. I don't understand all that. My HR people do. So, but I as a head need to know what's going on. I mean, up to a certain level. So the moment I admit to myself, I don't know it, but this is important for me to understand. So I will take out time to understand it. And I don't even sometimes know what to ask, but in conversations, in meetings, if I hear something saying, listen, what was that? And I kind of allocate time to it. I think it'll just happen. It's not that difficult as people say, but I think it's here. It's about cutting your ego of asking your junior most guy saying, listen, I want to understand what you do because it's important for me.
Gotcha. So asking questions, listening to what they have to say, put the ego to the side. Do you Amresh, carve out time that you can work on yourself, or is it less formal than that? How do you, in other words, what's your approach to actually developing yourself? Do you go out and get coaches? What's your approach? Amresh, are you there? I think we may have frozen up again here, so maybe he'll.
No, I'm
okay.
I'm
there you go.
I'm
okay, good. Did you hear my question, Amresh?
So I heard the question.
Okay.
So
yeah.
So I think I have 2 sets of time I have set aside for myself. I read every day, Brett, irrespective of what, where, even if I'm traveling, I'm in a hotel, I read every day.
You read what? Read what? What do you read?
Depends. If there's an interesting article that's come which is relevant to what I do, I read that. If there's nothing, I just read a storybook. Okay. But I realize that the habit of reading, stays with you. So sometimes you find interesting things to read about your profession, and sometimes you may not have something that day, but your habit of reading is there. So you pick up a storybook, a magazine, a novel to read. That's one. 2 is I have like, for example, I came into the loyalty business. I have a set of podcasts I have, which I have subscribed to. So there are times when I go for my morning walks, I'm listening to that. So I have kept aside some time which are my me time for learning, and I think that's important for me. And of course, as I said, interacting with industry peers, my own people, my colleagues, it's very, very important for me to learn from them as well. But I think it's a lifelong process. I did the same when I went to.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. No, please go ahead.
So I did the same when I went to Singapore, because the market in Singapore is very different from the market in India, and suddenly I realized I don't know many of the things, and so you had to get wealth management in Singapore has better products, much better and complex products than the Indian market used to offer those days. I had to get into the depth of each of the products to kind of just understand what we do, because you have to handle clients. So that's what I would recommend to everyone. Yeah.
Terrific. So make reading a habit. Use podcasts. It's amazing, isn't it, how much technology we all have access to nowadays, right? But make sure you have some. I think you called it me time. Did you call it me time? Did I pick up on that? Okay. Yeah. Make sure you do some me time, because I can tell you, and this is to the audience, I can look you right in the eyes and say that if you spend more time developing yourself than you do on your job, okay, the marketplace will find you. It really will, right. Just like it's done for this individual that we have with us right now as well. Amresh, before we wrap up, let's talk for just a couple of minutes about a favorite subject of many called conflict. And
Okay.
How do you feel about conflict? You obviously, as a CEO, have to deal with that all the time. But what's your perspective on conflict? There's a lot of people that are afraid of it, and they just don't like to be confronted with anything that may cause a little bit of friction and whatever. And then there's people on the other end of the spectrum that thrive on it. I mean, I've worked with people before that have created conflict, and that's how they learn. So you've got kind of both extremes on conflict. What's your view?
But I get very uncomfortable if I don't find conflict. And I'll give an
Okay.
example. Let's use a company as an example. If my CFO is agreeing to everything that my business guys are saying, then one of them is not doing the job. I expect my CFO to have a very tight control on the finances. And if he's agreeing to every, cost request, every budgetary request, then he's not doing his job. And it's no different from Brett. Let's go back to your and my banking days together. If your credit person is agreeing to everything that you are asking for as a private banker, one of you is not doing, either the private banker is not pushing the button on the slightly more aggressive cases, or the credit guy is saying yes too easily. In the first case, enough business is not happening. In the second case, your business is taking too risky calls. So if you ask my opinion, if my HR head is not having conflict with people, I have a problem, because that means why we are not pushing enough. I believe the moment you accept that as a person, that this conflict is actually good for you, it becomes very constructive tension as opposed to destructive tension. If you realize that as a private banker, my credit guy's job is to question what I do, instead of getting angry at the person or getting negative about it, you'll try and figure out, understand why is the credit person saying this, and is that a way for me to mitigate the risk? For example, let's take this specific example, and then the dialogue becomes far more productive, because then you're trying to resolve the issue that has come on the table, as opposed to becoming like a fight in your mind. As I said, I personally believe that if you don't have conflict in an organization, somebody's not doing the job correctly. And so I keep impressing my business guys when they come and fight with me, saying the CFO didn't agree for this, or my HR head is refusing to allow this recruitment to happen, or he or she is not letting me increase the salary of this person because there is a larger issue at hand if you do this. And I say, listen, she's doing her job. What are you doing about it? You need to understand that if she doesn't do this, then I have a problem. Then somewhere we are compromising on things. Yeah. So I think that's my view on conflict. It's very different from what people say, but it's worked for me at least, Brett.
Yeah, and there's no straight answer. To again, to the audience out there, there's no straight right answer on what is the right level of conflict, right? And a big part of it fits into the culture that you're shaping and the leadership style of not just the CEO, but the his or her executive team. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. Amrish, thank you for sharing that. And we're a little bit over time now. So Amrish, I'd like to thank you very much for carving time out of your busy evening to join us on the Packard Network and Minutes with Brett Live. And it's really terrific to hear about your career and life journey, and then also your perspectives on the different things that we've spoken about here. And I really appreciate that and look forward to having you back on again someday. So thank you for your time, Amrish.
Brett, many thanks to you for your time, and grateful. And everybody have a good night, good day. Yeah, you take care.
Bye. Yeah, Brett. Good. And as we wrap up, I look forward to seeing you next time on Minutes with Brett Live here on the Packard Network. And if you have any questions or anything via LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, please send your questions, and Amrish and I will both be happy to answer those as well. So